Olga Ivanovna was 22 years old, Dymov 31. They started life excellently after the wedding. Olga Ivanovna hung all the walls of the drawing room with her own and other people's studies, framed and unframed, and around the grand piano and furniture she arranged a beautiful clutter of Chinese parasols, easels, colorful rags, daggers, little busts, photographs. In the dining room she covered the walls with folk prints, hung up bast shoes and sickles, put a scythe and rake in the corner, and thus achieved a dining room in Russian style. In the bedroom, she draped the ceiling and walls with dark cloth to make it look like a cave, hung a Venetian lantern over the beds, and placed a figure with a halberd by the door. And everybody found that the young spouses had themselves a very sweet little corner. Every day, getting out of bed at around 11, Olga Ivanovna would play the piano or, if it was sunny, would paint something in oils. After that, between noon and 1, she would go to her dressmaker. Since she and Dymov had very little money, barely enough, she and her dressmaker had to be very clever if she was to appear frequently in new dresses and amaze people with her outfits. Often an old, re-dyed dress, some worthless scraps of tulle, lace, plush, and silk, would be turned into a wonder, something enchanting, not a dress but a dream. From the dressmakers, Olga Ivanovna usually went to see some actress she knew, to find out the theater news and incidentally try to get a ticket for the opening night of a new play or for a benefit performance. From the actress, she would have to go to an artist's studio or a picture exhibition, then to see some celebrity, to make an invitation or return a visit, or for a simple chat. And everywhere she was met gaily and amiably, and was assured that she was nice, sweet, rare. Those whom she called famous and great received her like one of themselves, like an equal, and in one voice prophesied that with her talents, taste, and intelligence, she would have great success if she did not disperse herself. She sang, played the piano, painted, sculpted, took part in amateur theatricals, and all of it not just anyhow, but with talent, whether it was making lanterns for a fete, or putting on a disguise, or tying someone's tie. Everything she did came out extraordinarily artistic, graceful, and pretty, but nothing showed her talent so strikingly as her ability to become quickly acquainted and on close terms with celebrities. The moment anyone became the least bit famous and was talked about, she made his acquaintance, became his friend that same day, and invited him to her house. Every new acquaintance was a veritable feast for her. She idolized celebrities, took pride in them, and saw them every night in her dreams. She thirsted for them and was never able to quench her thirst. Old ones would go and be forgotten, new ones would come to replace them, but she would get used to them, too, or become disappointed in them, and begin searching greedily for more and more new great people, find them, and search again. Why? Between 4 and 5 she had dinner at home with her husband. His simplicity, common sense, and good nature moved her to tenderness and delight. She kept jumping up, impulsively embracing his head, and showering it with kisses. "You're an intelligent and noble person, Dymov," she said, "but you have one very important shortcoming. You're not interested in art. You reject music and painting." "I don't understand them," he said meekly. "I've studied natural science and medicine all my life, and haven't had time to get interested in the arts. But this is terrible, Dymov." "Why? Your acquaintances don't know natural science and medicine, and yet you don't reproach them for it." "To each his own. I don't understand landscapes and operas, but I think like this. If some intelligent people devote their entire lives to them, and other intelligent people pay enormous amounts of money for them, then it means they're needed. I don't understand them, but not to understand doesn't mean to reject. Allow me to shake your honest hand." After dinner Olga Ivanovna would visit some acquaintances, then go to the theater or a concert, and return home past midnight. And so it went every day. On Wednesdays she had soirée. At these soirées the hostess and her guests did not play cards or dance, but entertained themselves with various arts. The actor recited, the singer sang, the artists did drawings in albums, of which Olga Ivanovna had many, the cellist played, and the hostess herself also drew, sculpted, sang, and accompanied. Between the recitations, music, and singing, they talked and argued about literature, the theater, and painting. There were no ladies, because Olga Ivanovna considered all ladies, except for actresses and her dressmaker, to be boring and banal. Not a single soirée went by without the hostess giving a start at each ring of the bell, saying with a triumphant expression, "It's him," meaning by the word him some new celebrity she had invited. Dymov would not be in the drawing room, and no one remembered his existence. But at exactly 11:30, the door to the dining room would open, and Dymov would appear with his meek, good-natured smile and say, rubbing his hands, "A bite to eat, gentlemen." They would all go to the dining room, and each time would see the same things on the table: a plate of oysters, a ham or veal roast, sardines, cheese, caviar, mushrooms, vodka, and 2 carafes of wine. "My sweet maître d'hôtel," Olga Ivanovna would say, clasping her hands in delight. "You're simply charming. Gentlemen, look at his forehead. Dymov, turn in profile. Look, gentlemen, the face of a Bengal tiger, and an expression as kind and sweet as a deer's. Oh, my sweet." The guests ate and, looking at Dymov, thought, "A nice fellow, actually," but they soon forgot him and went on talking about the theater, music, and painting. The young spouses were happy and their life went swimmingly. However, the 3rd week of their honeymoon passed not altogether happily, even sadly. Dymov caught erysipelas in the hospital, spent 6 days in bed, and had to shave his beautiful black hair. Olga Ivanovna sat with him and wept bitterly, but when he felt better, she put a white scarf around his cropped head and began painting him as a Bedouin. And they both felt merry. About 3 days after he recovered and began going to the hospital again, he suffered another mishap. "I have no luck, Mama," he said over dinner. "Today I had to do 4 dissections, and I cut myself on 2 fingers at once. And I only noticed it when I got home." Olga Ivanovna became alarmed. He smiled and said it was nothing and that he often cut himself while doing dissections. "I get carried away, Mama, and don't pay attention." Olga Ivanovna worriedly anticipated blood poisoning and prayed to God at night, but nothing bad happened. And again their peaceful, happy life flowed on without sorrows or alarms. The present was beautiful, and it would be replaced by the approaching spring, already smiling from afar and promising 1,000 joys. There would be no end of happiness. In April, May, and June a dacha too far from town, walks, sketching, fishing, nightingales, and then, from July right till fall, an artist's trip to the Volga, and Olga Ivanovna would take part in that trip, too, as a permanent member of the society. She had already had 2 simple linen traveling outfits made, and had bought some paints, brushes, canvases, and a new palette to take along. Ryabovsky came to her almost every day, to see what progress she had made in painting. When she showed him her paintings, he thrust his hands deep into his pockets, pressed his lips tightly, sniffed, and said, "Well, now, this cloud you've made too loud, it's not evening light. The foreground is somehow chewed up, and there's something off here, you see. And your little cottage is choking on something and squealing pitifully, this corner could be a bit darker. But in general it's not bad at all. My compliments." And the more incomprehensibly he spoke, the more easily Olga Ivanovna understood him.